A warm welcome to all the law students and school administrators that have made time in their busy schedules to join us for this spring's final installment of our Judicial Clerkship webinar series. My name is Kevin Harmon. I'll be your moderator today. I am a senior talent acquisition specialist in our HR placement division, and I help coordinate our law clerk program for the New Jersey Judiciary Courts. So before I kick things off with an overview of New Jersey courts and our one-of-a-kind law clerkship program, let's go over some housekeeping items. The webinar will be approximately an hour, hour and a half long. We will have opportunities throughout the webinar for questions via our Zoom Q&A feature. Try not to use the chat feature. We'll also have an opportunity for a longer Q&A session towards the end of the webinar as well. If we do not have the opportunity to answer all your questions during the webinar, we will follow up after the event. And this is important. At the end of the webinar, I will be going over some key dates in terms of current clerkship hiring, the application process schedule for the 2022-23 term, which current 2L students will be applying for. So please stick around for that. All right, so New Jersey's court system is recognized and respected nationally for our progressive and innovative work. Additionally, we have an advanced information technology infrastructure that has enabled the critical work of the courts to continue during the COVID-19 pandemic. We do have the largest state law clerkship program in the nation. Each year, our judges hire approximately 480 law clerks statewide. Our panelists are here today to describe the critical work of our judicial law clerks and to provide you information on the application and hiring process. So I'm honored to introduce our panel. They're each going to take a few minutes to let you know a little bit about themselves. First up, we have the Honorable Judge Harold Fulleylove Jr. of our Family Division representing the Essex County Vicinage. Judge Fulleylove.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's now afternoon, and actually I'm in the criminal division now. I moved, that's okay. They move us around a lot. Again, I'm Judge Harold Fulleylove Jr. I'm happy to talk to all of you. Just to have a little bit of my background, I was graduated from the College of William & Mary in Virginia. Then I attended Rutgers Law School in Newark. I then had a clerkship in Middlesex County, and at the time, back in the olden days, I clerked for two judges at the same time, two criminal judges. So it was a very intense year. I went from there to the Attorney General's office. I was working on the civil side. I then became a assistant prosecutor in Middlesex County because I really wanted to try cases. I became, in 2007, a municipal court judge. I ended up being a municipal court judge in 3 different towns, East Orange and Orange. I was the chief judge at the end, and I was also a judge in Plainfield. And in 2016, I became a superior court judge. I did my first 3 years in the family division, and I handled almost all of our docket types in family, except the children in courts and abuse and neglect dockets. Since 2019, I've been in the criminal division. So, and I look forward to talking to all of you. I'm a big fan of the clerkship process, and it's an amazing thing. I really look forward to talking to all of you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Judge Fulleylove. Next, we have the Honorable Judge Mala Sundar. She's a presiding judge representing our tax division. She's located at our central office in Trenton. Judge Sundar.
Hello, everybody. I'm so glad to be here, and thank you all for participating in this webinar. I think it's going to be very instructive. We're all here to help you. And I did not know Judge Fulleylove was my colleague at the Attorney General's office. I kind of went to law school at Rutgers and then had my baby. And then I started with the Attorney General's office. And I was there for about 13 years, started as a tax court judge and just got recently promoted to the presiding judge January of 2021. So my discussions will be very tax oriented, but I think the clerkship requirements and the clerkship discussion is very general. Everything that applies to all the judges would also apply to me.
Thank you, Judge Sundar. Our last judicial panelist is the Honorable Judge James Healy of our Civil Division representing the Union County Vistage. Judge Healy.
Okay, I'm not seeing myself. Am I showing up?
Am I on mute? No, you're good to go.
Okay. I'm so old that I appeared in front of Judge Fullalove's father when he was a judge. So I've been around quite a while. I've been a lawyer and judge for 41 years. I did do a summer clerkship internship in Union County, where I grew up and where I still practice. I practiced for 29 years as a trial attorney. I wrote 2 books. I wrote this book, New Jersey Law of Personal Injury, which is a kind of a legal treatise on that. And I also wrote a trial techniques manual called Trustworthiness and Trustworthy with Rideau. So I'm really interested in the law. I'm very proud to say that my law clerk, Nahima, is going to be one of the speakers today. She's just been fantastic. And I guess I want to underscore that she has a great personality. And forget about your academics. We're not looking for Harvard. We're not looking for Yale. We're looking for good personality people who are committed to the law.
All right. Thank you, Judge Healy. Now, and as Judge Healy said, we're also joined today by one of our current law clerks, Nahima Adedemenji. Hopefully I got that right, Nahima. From Rutgers University Law. Nahima works at our Union County business under Judge Healy. Nahima.
Hi, good afternoon. Like was said, my name is Nahima Adedemenji. I grew up in Hillside, attending Hillside High School, and then I went on to study my undergrad at King University. I started off my law school education at Delaware Law School, Widener University, and after my first year, I transferred to Rutgers Law Newark, and I spent my summers working in the Union County Counsel's Office as a law intern, and now I am a law clerk for Judge Healy in Union County, and I'm happy to be here.
All right, thank you, Nahima. And judges, for those introductions. Now, okay, you didn't come here today to listen to me speak the entire time, so let's start with a question for Judge Fullilove. What is it like to work as a judicial clerk in the New Jersey courts?
Thank you. The way I view the clerkship process and the relationship between the law clerk and judge, you are the liaison between the judge and the outside world. You are a representative of chambers. You're an extension of the judge. I did not watch Game of Thrones. However, someone described it to me that the law clerk is almost like the hand to the king. You really are there. You're representing the judge. And again, you're the liaison. The law clerk coordinates the motion schedule, does, of course, legal research and writing, both in the form of informative bench memos and opinions that are delivered in the judge's voice. So it's not merely a matter of, I've written this judge to instruct you on the law. It's also, judge, this is what you're going to be delivering orally from the bench as a result of the outcome of the motion. So you have both of those things. Some of the research that you do for the judge, most of it is, it's coming. There's a motion to suppress that's filed. There's an application to change who has custody of a child if you're in the family division. But some of your research is on the fly. I'm going to do my best to tell stories that are germane and not just tell old war stories. I had an issue once. I was handling a domestic violence case. And an issue came up, and in a domestic violence case, you have to have a certain predicate type of relationship between the parties to qualify for a domestic violence case. And the victim, started talking about the relationship that she did or did not have with the defendant. And my law clerk at the time, who was, whip smart, he could see from the look on my face, this may be an issue. He ran into the back, pulled up the leading case on what constitutes a relationship for domestic violence purposes, and kind of ran back in the court and suddenly handed it to me because he could see, all right, well, this is going to be an issue that may turn the case. So we need to do this. But he's paying that type of attention. So some of that research is on the fly. And that goes to one other thing you have to do. You have to anticipate the judge's needs. It's not enough to simply do a memo. My law clerks will do things where they'll say, Judge, in addition to the memo I've prepared for you, I've also printed off for you to read yourself the leading case on the issue. Or defense counsel mentions this one case repeatedly. I don't know that I agree that this case stands for what counsel has said. So Judge, in addition to my write-up, here are the 2 or 3 cases so you can look at those on your own. Again, that's anticipating what I need. Your responsibilities will differ depending on the division and docket type, clearly. In family, for example, I would make we had a docket called FD, which is a docket that is concerned with the issues of parenting time, custody, child support for couples who were either never married or couples who are married but not seeking a divorce for whatever reason. The amount of decisions I'd have to make in that case, in any one case, I'd have to decide who gets custody. What's the visitation or parenting time schedule going to be? Who's going to get Christmas what year? When does Christmas start? Does it start on the 24th at noon? Does it start at the 24th at 5 p.m.? When does a weekend start if Dad has weekends? Is the weekend going to be Friday after school through Sunday, or is it going to be Saturday morning through Monday morning? You're making a ton of decisions. And so you really have to have a symbiotic relationship with your law clerk at some point when I was dealing those cases where you're anticipating what I need, the questions I'm going to ask, you're thinking about the things that are the issues, and we're going back and forth. In criminal, it's a little different. You're dealing with a lot of the constitutional issues. Was this search constitutional legally? Was this identification appropriate? You're dealing with those issues, and you're also dealing with jury trials and watching those techniques. In family court, there's no jury, so the judge has a lot of responsibility to make all of the decisions, and not just make the decisions, articulate why you've made those decisions. A jury can just say guilty or not guilty and be done with it. And so there's a difference to it, but it's all a lot of that working with the judge. In terms of your response, my interactions with my law clerks, I have had, knock on wood so far, I've had 5 clerks so far. I've had great relationships with all of them. I think your responsibilities are clear. You can go on the website and read what those are. But you should understand that most judges feel as though we have a responsibility to prepare to our law clerks to prepare you to be a lawyer. I think the two things go hand in hand. Your responsibilities as a law clerk, my responsibility to help make you a better lawyer. And I think those two goals actually serve one another. I, for example, make sure that my law clerks sit in when we were in the building on every single conference that we would have when 2 attorneys would want to come see me and meet. For a couple of reasons. Number one, I need the law clerk to remind me of dates. If I say, okay, we'll make your brief due this day, we'll make your brief due this day, we'll go on the record, we'll put it on the record, I may have thrown those numbers out and may forget them. My law clerk's taking those to remember that. Also, it's important because I want you as a young attorney to see what a conference is like between a judge and attorneys. As an attorney, your first time conferencing a case in the judge's chambers should not be your first time seeing a conference in a judge's chambers. So I'm trying to prepare you for that. I ask my law clerks what their opinion is constantly. Why? Number one, because I respect your opinion. I've hired you because I think you're smart. I want to know what you think. Also, as judges, we do need on occasion, we do need outside perspective. The greatest ideas are strong enough to withstand challenge or questions. So if I think something, I will ask my law clerk, what do you think about that? Because I need that feedback to make sure I'm on the right path. But also for the law clerk perspective, you need to learn not just what decisions a judge makes, but why the judge makes that decision. I want you to start to do that analysis, not just as a law clerk, but as someone who will be an attorney. You're only going to be a law clerk for 1 year. You hopefully have a long career as an attorney. So I ask those questions. What do you think the outcome should be in this case? Even if I know what the outcome is going to be, well, what do you think the outcome should be? What would you do if you were that attorney? Do you think that technique or that argument the attorney used was successful? Why or why not? And you should understand, it's not the meaningless Socratic method you get in law school. I actually give my law clerks the answer to those questions. But again, I'm trying to prepare you for the future. I want you to be prepared for when a judge puts you on the spot and asks you questions. You need to be able to respectfully tell a judge what you think and why. You need to be able to respectfully tell a judge why, Your Honor, with all due respect, I disagree on that point because of A, B, and C. And so you're getting that opportunity as a law clerk when you're interacting with the judge to engage in that respectful intellectual process. And it's again, I have great relationships with my law clerks. I literally talk to, not my current clerk, who I of course talk to every day, but I've had 5 clerks total. The 4 others, I probably talk to each of them. Well, I probably talk to a former law clerk at least once a week. And we'll go a little later into why you should clerk, but that's something you should bear in mind. I look at it as a lifelong relationship. And so it's not just the grind. It's not just I'm doing research and writing if you didn't like that. It really is an opportunity for you to learn. It's an opportunity for you to foster the relationship. It's an opportunity for you to also, after your clerkship year, if you make a mistake in court, your name is on the brief. You're the one the judge is looking at. You're the one the client's looking at. You're the one the senior partner is looking at. You're the one that your boss in the prosecutor's office or PD's office is looking at. You're the one that court counsel is looking at if you're underneath him. As a law clerk, that's the one time as a lawyer that honestly your name's not at the bottom of anything. So you get to have the intellectual freedom to say, Judge, I think this is the thing. It may be way out there, but I think it. And again, I can rein you back. The judges can either rein you back or say, no, you're absolutely right. Go for it. So it's I think, a very freeing time for you if you have that relationship with your judge. And hopefully, I know most judges look forward to fostering that type of familial relationship with your law clerks. I know judges who have retired, but still every year they have a dinner with their law clerks in the summer. So I could talk forever and I don't want to take up everyone's time. I see Mr. Harmon giving me the look. But I think hopefully I've covered what it's like to be a judiciary law clerk, Mr. Harmon.
You're about to go into one of my other questions for another judge about how you mentor.
Well, that's why I pulled back. I don't want to step on Judge Healy's toes.
Gotcha. I want to get to Nahima real quick. Nahima, tell us a little bit about your experience as a law clerk so far under Judge Healy.
Oh, well, I definitely agree with our judge. It's a hybrid function where you are doing a lot of research and writing. You're doing memos, preparing, and all that's associated with being a law clerk, but it's also a hybrid function where you're also working in an admin capacity. There are phone calls, there are calendar preparation, emails, correspondences, where you are in constant contact with litigants, with other attorneys, with other staff. But it's not overwhelming, but I think the positive thing about being a law clerk is that having the opportunity to work in this dual function definitely prepares you for your career. For sure, when I started with Judge Healy, one of my first tasks was to observe a few hearings. And with that, you get the opportunity to see how to present before the judge. Everyone doesn't have that experience prior to their clerkship. You have the opportunity to see what's formal, how litigants argue with one another, and how the judge responds to litigants. So I think that, one of the positive things about this clerkship is that you learn something every day. And it's not only involved with the law, but you learn everyday interpersonal interactions between your adversaries, between judges, between other staffs. And I think that's one of the things that I find important about the duties as a law clerk.
Right. Thank you, Nahima. So Judge Sundar, what do you look for when you're selecting a law clerk?
Yeah, I look at, because I do tax, I want to make sure that the applicant really is interested in tax. If you are not interested in tax and you apply just for the sake of getting a clerkship, you are doing a disservice to yourself because you really are in a field that you don't want to be, and you're wasting a year of valuable time when you could be clerking for a judge in the area that you really like. And you're doing a disservice to me because then if I want to engage, as Judge Fully-Love said, as Naima said, engage in conversation. What do you think about this issue? You're just like, yeah. Whatever you say, Judge. Yeah, Judge, yeah, I agree with you. That's not, you're not learning, I'm not teaching, and I think we're kind of useless to each other. So I look on my resumes, and then when I interview, I look for candidates who really want to be where they want to, apply for. So they want to do tax, or they're interested in tax, and they have some, inquiries as to how it works. So that's one of the things I really look for. My law clerk, Jillian, was on this panel a couple of weeks ago. And I think he mentioned it, but when I interview and you tell me that you love tax, especially the constitutional part of it, I will ask you questions about what is the Dormant Commerce Clause. And I can get, if you don't know the answer, you say, you know what, Judge, I think it was the case with the Amazon issue, that's enough for me. You're kind of telling me, okay, I know it. I don't know the exact details, but at least you're able to discuss it. So that's one of the things I do look for, is whether they really have interest. And if they don't, I tell them, look, if you really like to do a lot of litigation, you should be before Judge Healy, try to clerk for Judge Healy or Judge Fully-Love, because they have ongoing litigation. Tax court is a lot more, not everyday litigation. And I've had, clerks say that, and I've told them to go to the IRS because there's a lot more litigation than that. So I think it's good, because a lot of the law clerks who are coming are testing. This is what I really want to do. Is this what I don't want to do? And the testing happens while you're at school and trying to do the internship. You try a couple of, interning with some of the judges, some of the areas, and that's when you see, you know what, I really don't want to do tax. I'd rather do criminal. I'd rather do civil. Right. So that's kind of it's interest in the subject matter that's really important, because you're going to be there for a whole year. And if you start off with no interest, it's going to be a very painful year for you and for me. So that's one of the main things I look for, Kevin.
All right. Thank you, Judge Sundar. So Judge Healy, we're going to get you in here as well. How do you go about interacting with your law clerks, and what are some of the expectations, I guess, you set when they're incoming?
Well, I think Judge Fulov really articulated the whole gamut of things, as did Judge Sundar, from the tax court point of view. The judge just needs help, and to some extent, it depends on the judge. But I'm looking to give the law clerk an experience. Some judges, they're looking for the law clerk to do all their work for them. I think you'd rather have the former, not the latter. But just underscore that you get inside the courthouse. And as Nahima, my present law clerk, said, you get to know what the protocols are and how it works inside. And that never leaves you. As I said, I've been doing this 41 years. Those early days, getting inside the courthouse, working with judges, getting to know that they're human beings also, that has lasted and stuck with me, and it helps me with my own law clerks to know, what their needs are.
Good. Okay, good. So Nahima, what's something that you wish you knew or surprised you about the role of a law clerk that you did not know before?
What surprised me, I would say, well, it's not that I didn't know it before, but I think what surprised me was how I didn't recognize how important it was to establish relationships with the other law clerks. And I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself, but for our term, we started in the middle of a pandemic. We rarely see one another. And with training, it was also hybrid. Some training was in person, some training was virtual, but I underestimated how important it was to lean on my fellow law clerks. And we have created ways to communicate with one another and keep each other up to date. If I have a question about child support, I have 3 other family law clerks that I can just message on Teams and it can guide me. So I think that's what surprised me the most. I don't think that starting my clerkship, I didn't realize, you think it's just you and your judge in the chambers, but I think what surprised me was how helpful it can be to lean on your colleagues. So that's, for me, what was most surprising and beneficial, one of the most beneficial works.
Thank you for that perspective. Judge Sundar, with COVID-19, and we talked about this a little bit before the webinar started, but how has, I guess, COVID-19 changed the way you interact or with your law clerk, or in general, the court as a whole?
Yeah, I have to start with saying I don't like it. Obviously, the remoteness, it's something so different. If Nahima or my current law clerk, it's just different when you come into my chambers and says, oh my God, Judge, I can't understand why this brief is written so badly, versus you telling me virtually, there's that personality is just missing. But, you got to do what you have to do. And we've been managing very successfully. I heard Judge Healy say, I'm so old, but we're all about 2 decades older than any incoming law clerk. So we're all on the same page, Judge Healy. And you, as 2 decades younger than us, know so much more about the Zoom and the how it's working and how it's done. And I just leave it to them. And they're phenomenal at it. They're able to talk to the attorneys. The attorneys are looking to the law clerk to see, how do I participate in this Zoom motion, in the Zoom trial? How do I upload my evidence? Jillian teaches them. He says, this is what you do. This is how you share your screen. We've created a OneDrive for you. This is how you upload it. And the law clerks are invaluable for that. And my law clerk this year, he's been doing it everything himself. I just sit back, I click on Zoom, and then I'm on it. And he said, Judge, all the parties are ready, and I start. That's how much I have relied on my law clerk in this virtual, whole procedure. So I'm there, and then the attorneys are talking. I do my stuff as a judge, and like I'm sure Nahima does, Jillian is, making sure the evidence is being identified, marked into evidence, uploaded, shown on the screen. Does everything. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, but I think because I don't know if I'm using the right term, millennial, I should use Gen X, Gen Y, Gen whatever, but they are far superior to us in this. They pick it up like that. And I think it just benefits us tremendously. So it's been very successful with my law clerk.
Very good, very good. So Judge Healy, I guess what's the best way to prepare for like an upcoming clerkship?
Well, you have to presume you get the job, but I mean, I just want to emphasize there's more than 400 judges looking every year for a new law clerk. So this is tremendous opening to law students to get their feet under the ground. I go back to Nahima. Now you can tell just from listening to her talk that she has a great personality. Personality is terribly important when you're interviewing, and also, you can show your personality in your resume and cover letter too by telling unusual things about yourself that might make you stand out differently. Very important that I get these resumes. I'm sure all the judges get through, and they have a certain sameness about them. They all look the same. You want to somehow separate that out to make you different. I also want to encourage law students from all different law schools that do not be intimidated by where you go to law school. You didn't go to Harvard, you didn't go to Yale, you didn't go to Georgetown. Don't think about that, because I'll just give you some examples. We have a member of the New Jersey Supreme Court who went to Widener Law School. The New Jersey Senate Judiciary Chairman, who has more power over who gets appointed to be a judge and who gets reappointed than anyone, he went to Thomas Cooley Law School, which was the bottom of the ABA-approved law schools. And let me tell you, that guy has had a successful career, and he is really smart, and he's basically in charge of who gets to be a judge. So I'll give you one more example. The chief counsel for the prior president, the president who's no longer president, at least according to the votes, he went to Widener Law School, okay? And the president said, what's with Widener Law School? And he says, look, man, that's where I got in. I want to be a lawyer. And that's what he did. But the interesting thing about that guy, who was a New Jersey guy from South Jersey, when the president said, I want you to fire the special prosecutor Mueller, he refused to do it. He had ethics. And then when the president found out, that leaked, that he refused to fire, he told the chief counsel, I want you to go out there to the press and tell him that's not true. I didn't tell you to fire him. And he says, I'm not doing that either. This was a man who at the core had ethics. So don't be concerned about where you went to law school. You make whatever you had. I know when I was applying to law school, I got into Widener Law School. And if I hadn't got into somewhere else that was a little cheaper, I would have gone there. And I would have still been successful. And you'll be successful if you have the right attitude.
Right. So all my Widener audience members, make sure you throw your resumes over to Judge Healy. But Judge Fulilove, what was it like to, I guess, switch from family to criminal for you? How was that transition, and did it have any effect on your law clerk?
It absolutely had an effect. I spent 3 years in family. And so by the time, at the end of those 3 years, I had a nice little kind of library of write-ups on every particular issue. I had a nice, body of knowledge that was there. And so when a new law clerk could come in, they didn't have to reinvent the wheel. I can say, oh, well, this issue that I did a write-up for State v. Harmon, about 3 years ago, look at it, use that as your baseline for your research. There was a good amount of institutional knowledge. And you have to understand that your job is not merely, hey, judge, I have to write this brief. Hey, judge, I have to find out when this motion is. There are a lot of administrative tasks that go into it. What computer system are you using? In your criminal, you're using promise gavel. In family, you're using fax. I don't even know what they use in civil. I have no idea what they would use in tax court. And so there were some questions that when I transitioned to criminal for my law clerk, we were both starting from scratch. Now I had a background having, practice in the criminal area, so I could give her some of those things. But for the law clerk, she was brand new. She had to start from scratch. There were issues with scheduling with computers, brand new. She had to learn. Everyone gets 1 million emails a day. You have to figure out which one of those you have to pay attention to and which ones you can just ignore and you just CC'd on them. We were learning that together. But again, everything you go through, you can either look at it as a positive or a negative. The positive was the law clerk and I got to learn together. So that made us closer, right? Judge, I have no idea. No, neither do I. Well, let's figure it out. And so if you look at every problem as a puzzle, then it's something that can be solved and fixed. And that was great in that way. And then it also, going to different areas of the law, different divisions will give your law clerk or use a law clerk different opportunities to see things. There is a perception that in terms of trials, that the attorneys who try cases in criminal are more skilled than the attorneys who try cases, say, in family. And so, the law clerk then gets to see really good jury trials and see the difference between, okay, that's a great argument to make to a judge, but that argument has no jury appeal. How do you make that same argument, but make it where a jury buys in and they say, okay, I got it, I understand, I get it. So, you really just have to look for the opportunities to learn, no matter where you are. And, that's really what it comes down to.
Okay, all right, good. So Judge Sundar, Judge Healy, what writing samples have stood out to you, during the application process?
What writing?
What writing samples have stood out to you during the application process?
Writing samples which are succinct, identify, it's basically I think when I went to law school, it was called the RULAC. You just basically identify the issue and then what the law is, apply the law to the facts kind of thing. And I like that because I think it makes a lot of sense reading a writing sample that way, because right up, what it is, and then what the law is, and what the conclusion is. So those kind of samples are really good. Those are the ones that I like to read. I pay a lot more attention to the resume, really, to the experience, because at the end of the day, at least in tax court, I know it's different with different courts. With Judge Fulilove and Judge Healy, it might be different writing. I don't really insist on having law clerks write memos to me. What I do is I make them read the briefs, both sides, and then we discuss the case and we say, well, what do you think? Does this person have a better position than this position? The law clerk is with me during trial or during a motion, and the law clerk starts drafting the opinion for me. So it's no pre-memo or something like that. The memo version is our discussion. So I really don't pay too much attention other than to see whether in the writing sample, whether it's succinct. Here's the issue, here's the this, and this is what I did, and the analysis. This is why I think what it is. So that portion of it I pay, but a lot more is really what the law clerk talks to me about the resume, and what they imply to me is how they do it, what we discuss. That controls a lot more to me than the writing sample.
Gotcha. Okay. Judge Healy?
I just want to remind me the question. Was it, what am I looking for in looking at resumes?
Yeah, what stands out to you when you see a writing sample?
All right. Well, I have never read a written sample of writing that's been given to you. You get too many resumes to do that. I'm just going to presume based upon other things I see that the person can write a sentence. Okay. And I'm not going to teach somebody how to write. Every judge has their own style. So what I'm looking for is in the resume, not necessarily, like Judge Sondar said, experience. I want to know who the person is. I want to know their personality. As you can tell from me hiring Nahima, she has a great personality. And that's the most important thing to me. Can I interact with this person? So certainly with the interview, you don't want to come in with your head down and looking down and I can't, lawyers have to be confidence inspiring. So when you're doing your interviews and trying to get your foot in the door, you have to inspire confidence, because that's why clients come to you, because they believe I'm involved in some complicated mess. I need somebody who's confident and knows what they're doing. So I'll just give one quick example of something that stood out to me. I had a guy, he submitted his resume and it said he did track in high school, which is important to me. And then when he's interviewing, he tells me that he ran the mile in 4 minutes and 47 seconds, which, under 5 minute mile, that's pretty unusual. That's pretty darn good. That tells me the guy worked hard. I said, why don't you put that on your resume? So put those unusual little bits in your resume that make you stand out. And then in an interview, I can find out what that's all about.
And Kevin, if I could just add on to what Judge Healy said, Judge Healy has said, something I feel as well. I'm assuming there's a baseline level of talent for the people I choose to interview. Who would I like to spend a year with? Right. Who would I like to spend a year interacting with? And it doesn't make sense to make your resume interesting if that's not who you are. We talk a lot about work-life balance. Have an interesting life. Do things, read those books, learn that language, skydive. I had one of my law clerks, I just thought I was like, oh, you played soccer Division I at an art school. That's fascinating. Tell me about that. But there's a value not just to the transcript and the resume. What's your life experience like? Because again, I'm going to learn from my law clerk. I want a different perspective. I want someone who brings something to the table that I don't already have. And so if you've lived, so there's absolute merit to having a well-rounded life, not to the expense or detriment of your classwork and your career, by no means. But, those things are important to all of us. Judge Healy's like, wow, you ran a sub 5 minute mile. That's awesome. And it's, I agree, it's awesome. But those are cool things that each of us have that judges want to know about.
Gotcha. So you're telling me all throughout my career, I should have been putting on my resume that I was on a game show when I was 13. Should have.
That would have been a great,
yes!
But see, that's a great talking point.
Because think fast. You're like, Nickelodeon. I should have put it on there.
Yeah, like Nickelodeon, really. I wonder if I saw the show. Bring that guy in for an interview. And then you maybe wow us during the interview, but it's that little nugget. If he had nothing but, strict C minuses, he's not going to get called in. It'll be nothing. But, that guy has, a really strong transcript and he has this cool thing. Okay, let's talk about that.
Gotcha. And I really was on a game show, just so everybody knows, not lying.
We'll talk about that after.
It's on YouTube. I'll show you sometime. But Nahima, what was your thought process like when you decided to do a judicial clerkship?
To be completely honest, I wanted to take advantage of the 1 year where I had the opportunity to take the bar exam and to figure out where I wanted to go. I'm not the person who says, oh, this is definitely what I want to do. I only want to practice this. I only want to be in this capacity. And my thought process was, let me use this 1 year to learn a little bit about the law, to get familiar with the courtroom, and to not take my time, but really decide what was the next step for me. So that was pretty much my process, to give me that 1 year period to really figure out the rest of my life.
Gotcha. Okay, good. So this is for all panelists, so someone jump in. But do you prefer to closely guide your clerks through the writing process, or do you discuss their projects after they're completed? For instance, writing feedback.
Oh, can I start? I guess because I'm on top of the panel of the pictures. It's after, because what I do is I say, we've heard the motion, we've heard the summary judgment motion. Now tell me what, should be the result. So then I get the draft and then I start discussing, you missed this or you missed that, or this is a great point that you did. And then I give my comments, and then I do my own draft of what it should be. And then I think like Judge Fully-Loved touched on in the first point, can come and say, Judge, you got this wrong. Isn't this what they mean? And he could be completely right. And like he said, Judge Fully-Loved said, you need a different perspective at times. And that's where it's the education process, I think, starts for me and for the law clerk. So starting point is, yes, after the writing is finished, that's when I look at it and I give him the comments, the suggestions. There's not a critique really, because it's just, we're not here giving out stars or A's or anything like that. It's educating. You're going to be a good lawyer in the future. You're going to be, whatever you're doing, there's going to be writing as part of your life, whether it's writing briefs or motions, it's part of your life. It's just going to be there. So if there are issues in organization, if there are issues in missing analysis, which is the most important, the substantive part, I would tell him that. So we just discuss it, but it's after the fact. Yeah, after the writing, and not in bits and pieces kind of thing. Yeah. And Jillian has been wonderful. We recently had a very complicated case regarding net operating losses, and he and I were just trying to figure out what each attorney was trying to say, and in terms of numbers. And, eventually he helped me tremendously in that, putting me the charts together. And, we try to talk about it, which number came from which and which and which. So that was more of a collaborative, not at the end kind of thing, because we knew what we were going to say. It was just how to get there. So sometimes it's more collaborative. Don't wait for the end, but usually it's after the written product is given to me, and then we do the discussion.
Okay, good. Judge Healy?
I'm not going to comment on that one. I'm not such a good back and forth in the writing. Nahima would tell you, but no need to waste time on that.
Well, then, let me jump in. With family and criminal, it's a little different because my law clerks will they'll start the process before we even have the hearing or the motion, laying out what the black letter law is, what that baseline is. But even if you have, in the criminal world, you'll have a police report to go off of. If you're doing a testimonial motion, you really can't, you really have to cater what your decision will be based upon that testimony. So the law clerk will start off. The law clerk will start off doing that kind of baseline analysis, and then after the testimony, maybe we'll have a discussion about where I think it is, and I'll talk to them about the law, and then they'll come back to me at the end, and I won't read it until the end. What you guys should know is if your judges have a great deal of experience in whatever division they're in, they probably already know the answer. It's really a matter of, and see Judge Healy shaking his head, he almost always is going to know the answer ahead of time. He wants to make sure that you go through the process of learning the way to do the analysis to get to that answer. And now Judge Healy, I can speak for myself, I won't speak for Judge Healy. I may not say, oh, it's this particular case on this particular page, but I'm pretty sure it's Subin, and I'm pretty sure, and I know where it's going to go. It's really a matter of me trying to make sure you understand that process. And then let's refine your writing. So my position, because again, it's going to be my decision. When my decision comes out, I've made it as clear as possible. I've made it as easy to understand as possible. And hopefully, something that won't be overturned on appeal.
Okay, very good. So Nahima, could you, I guess, take us through, describe like day-to-day responsibilities in Judge Healy's chambers?
My experience is quite unique because Judge Healy's dockets doesn't really require a lot of memo writing or research. But he shared me with Judge Crystal and Judge Brown, who are also in the family division, and I have the opportunity to do research and writing for Judge Crystal and Judge Brown. But for Judge Healy, it involves a lot of admin work. I'll come in, I'll check the phones, I'll check emails, I prepare the calendar. If Judge Healy has a question or if there's anything I can do, I handle that. I also moderate Zoom hearings for TROs that come in, or if I cover some CIC hearings. It sounds like a little bit, it can take a whole day, but it's very moderate work. And then I also handle, like I said earlier, motions for Judge Brown and Judge Crystal, and I observe hearings on Fridays or throughout the week.
Good. So Judge Healy, what are some of the factors, I guess, or reasons why law students should pursue judicial clerkship?
Okay, well, Nahima just mentioned a good one, a very practical one. You're gonna have to take the bar exam. If you get a clerkship, you take the bar exam before the clerkship starts. Not everybody passes on the first time. I think of 11 clerks, I had only one that didn't pass the bar exam. But if you didn't pass the bar exam, you're still in a good position. Hopefully the judge is friendly enough and kind enough to allow you plenty of time in that clerkship to study for the bar exam if you have to take it again. This is amazing, but I kind of specialize in minority law clerks. I think 90% have been minorities because I just figured those kids need the chance that some more privileged kids don't need, and Nahima being one of them. So I've had her contacting, and she's done this herself, contacting my prior law clerks, which the judges keep relationships with their prior law clerks. And they all got these great jobs. They get education law, corporate law, employment law, municipal law. So Nahima called up one of my prior law clerks who's doing municipal work in a law firm very successfully. And next thing you know, she's got a job interview with that firm. And she's going to get the job next week. She's going to interview. And this is how it works. This is networking. Okay. And so using the clerks, the other clerks, the prior clerks, but Nahima has the personality to go out and get it. So that's my comments on that.
All right. Yeah, that was going to be like my next question, the mentoring aspect of the position. So yeah, dive into that, Judge Fully Love.
I was going to say, just to again add on to what Judge Healy said so eloquently, the judge's network becomes your network. So Naima may have used one of Judge's former law clerks, but it could have been an attorney who's appeared in front of him. When you work with a judge, you have a job reference who, assuming your judge has a great reputation, who is automatically an amazing job reference for you. And my law clerks have taken full advantage of that. Again, just a quick story. One of my law clerks was interviewing at a law firm. I happened to know one of the attorneys at the law firm. Was a good friend, spoke to him, said, listen, she's amazing. She's absolutely amazing. She interviews, and she was legitimately amazing. She interviews. As she's driving home, the hiring partner calls me. And, I said she was great, said all the, honestly positive things about her. She got the job offer before she got home on the drive.
Nice.
And because, again, she was awesome on her own, but you have a judge who further legitimizes her. That same particular law clerk realized she wanted to work in a particular area of law, didn't really have a way to get into that area of law. I happened to go to a Rutgers Law event, and literally on a Thursday, we're talking about, Judge, this is the dream company I would love to work for. Go to a law school event, see one of my classmates who actually is general counsel for that exact company. I mentioned to him, hey, listen, I have this law clerk, amazing, would really like to work for you, get them to connect. Now, this is a number of years ago. He didn't have anything, for her at that time, but they stayed in touch. And she now has an interview tomorrow to work there. And it's a guy I hadn't seen in 20 plus years that she would have never come into contact with. And again, this is not a story about Judge Fully Love being great. It's a story about, the law students and the law clerks getting accessibility they wouldn't have before. And then we're going to give you professional advice. You figure we have a pretty good job, so we understand what you should do in a career. And so the law clerks will call me and say, Judge, should I make this decision or this decision? I've had law clerks. I have a law clerk who works in another state, so the record is clear. Call me and say, Judge, I'm writing this brief. Does this argument make sense? In your life, you're going to feel like you have a stupid question to ask. Your judge is that person who you can ask that stupid question, and the judge isn't going to think you're stupid because they know you're not. You may not want to ask someone in your office. You may be in an office that's competitive. I get those calls. Judge Healy, Judge Sundar get those calls. hey, Judge, I was thinking, for this motion, how would you feel if you heard this argument? That is invaluable, and that's lifelong. I was a law clerk in 1999, and I occasionally still reach out to one of my judges and say, hey, Judge, what do you think? It's something I would recommend for everyone.
Right. Judge Sundar, what are some of, I guess, the jobs or positions some of your law clerks have secured after clerking with you?
Oh, they vary. They've gone into private. Some have gone into the Attorney General's office as the Deputy Attorneys General representing tax in tax court and various courts. Some have gone to accounting firms, and a couple have become partners in law firms. So pretty from the gamut.
Now, does it matter for applicants if they don't have ties to New Jersey or the area, or doesn't I guess particularly want to stay and practice law in the area?
You're asking me or everybody else?
You can jump in if you.
Okay, I guess I shouldn't say this, but I like to give the locals the opportunity. I mean, we're here, we're New Jersey. I like to see my people give opportunities, but that doesn't mean that the doors are closed to anybody else. No, you have the qualifications, you have the interest. It doesn't matter to me that nobody knows where we're going to be a year from now. There are some law clerks who do say, I want to go back to California because that's where my parents are. I want to go back to New York. That's where my grandma is, and I want to be with her. That's your life choice. That's your decision. But as long as you satisfy me in terms of qualifications and you are happy to learn tax, I don't have the problem. So it's not like I'm going to reject any applications, because we get lots of applications from out of state and from all over the country. And there are people who really, really love tax and they just want to learn tax. And, and every court, I know the subject matter might be the same, but every court functions differently. So it's not, but there are the general skills that are transferable from our courts to out of state. So it's never going to be, oh, I have, somebody coming from Wisconsin, I'm not even going to look at it. No, if the person is interested, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Judge Fulilov, I know you just mentioned somebody was from out of state.
Well, of my 5 former law clerks, one works in New York. One, from the day she interviewed, explained her desire to move and practice in Florida, because she knew she was going to be probably getting married and moving to Florida and then eventually to California. And it's, some of the skills are transferable. I think if you don't plan on staying in New Jersey, you may hurt your networking opportunities somewhat, because our judges tend to be very, entrenched in Jersey. But it's still helpful. Again, I've gotten phone calls about recommendations for jobs in Delaware, Florida, DC, New York. We're still judges who you work for, and we still generally have that level of respect. And New Jersey judiciary has a great deal of respect throughout the country. So don't consider that if it may be helpful to be a law clerk in the area where you want to be, but you're also probably in the 25 to 32-year-old range, and where you want to be may change.
Right.
So, and what you have to understand is also excellence is considered to be a transferable skill. If you are excellent for Judge Sundar and you eventually realize you don't want to do tax, you could probably still get a job somewhere doing something completely unrelated, because she's going to say, whatever you put in front of this particular person, they're going to do great at it. Same thing with Judge Healy, same thing with me. I mean, I have law clerks who do something completely different than what they've done for me, but I said they will learn anything and everything. They will work as hard as any human being can possibly work, and they will give you great results.
Good. Okay. So Judge Healy, what differentiates a good law clerk from a great law clerk, in your opinion?
Yeah, I've repeated this, but it is important. I want a nice personality and somebody who's pleasant to work with, and that's the difference. I did have one law clerk way back who was she seemed a little reticent, and one of the assignments that law clerks have to do is mediate cases in the district court, smaller cases. There's assigned each term to do a certain amount of mediations. And the young law clerk said to me, well, I really hate mediation. And I went like this, you hate mediation? That's what lawyers do. We talk, we convince people, we get them involved, we get them engaged, find out what the issues are. And she told me, well, I'm really a shy person. And that's really tough to be a lawyer for a lot of things, to be shy. So I'm looking for a personality. And I just want to follow up on one thing I said before. I happen to mention Widener Law School. We have judges in my county from Pace Law School, Cooney in New York, Dickinson. So don't be putting a peg in your head that like, oh, I only went to this law school. Don't let that worry you. Go forward, be who you are, and show what's different about you.
Kevin, can I say something on the personality that Judge Healy finds is the most crucial criterion? I've had a couple of law clerks who are very shy. It's just their personality. But it didn't stop me from, I said, okay, here's somebody who's not as, what's the word I'm looking for? Not as extrovertish as, talking and stuff, but very intelligent, very knows the, writing was great, succinct, and she just bloomed with us. So it's also a part of that when the law clerk, even what I'm trying to say is, if you consider yourself as a quiet, shy personality, don't let that stop you from saying, oh, is it going to be a problem? It's not. I think all of us have told you here, presented that we're family. We're like your parents, we're like the main duck that is taking the ducklings behind her crossing the street, or, so we'll make sure. And when the law clerks are talking and getting involved, as Nahima said, scheduling, talking to the attorneys, it will just come out. Your shyness will, I think, naturally take a backside, and you will say, okay, this is what my job is. It's not that bad. It's okay. And I was just amazed at how this woman, when I interviewed her, was very shy, gave the right answers. And then after a year, just blossomed. She was talking to everybody. She was talking to the attorneys. So I think, yes, if you're shy, it might be in the long run, but don't let that prevent, because we're all talkative and we're going to make sure you talk. So, Judge Healy, I didn't mean to contradict you, but I was giving my version of the shyness.
So when the law clerk told me she was shy, she said, you have to read this book called Quiet, which is a major bestseller that helps shyer people come out of and deal with the real world. Here's something I actually do. I make my law clerk applicants take what's called the Big 5 personality test. Look it up on the internet and take it, and that you can self-diagnose. What type of personality do I have? I'll repeat, the Big 5 personality test. It's supposedly very capable and accurate. Best personality test out there.
Evan, can I make one comment? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I apologize to everyone. I totally forgot that part of our clerkship involves mediating special civil part matters twice a month. And I want to agree with our judges. It's true that you may start your first mediation, you may be shy, it may seem intimidating, you may get a little nervous, especially if we're doing it on Zoom or by phone. But I actually mediated one matter this morning and I was as confident as can be. My first mediation was in October. And by March, I'm confident. I know the intro by heart. I don't need to look at my notes. So I do want to emphasize how you learn every day and how a part of experience comes with confidence. And your confidence will go from, I used to think I was shy. I'm not, because the more I speak with people that I probably would never see by face, the more confident and more comfortable I became with public speaking. I just wanted to add that. And I apologize for forgetting to tell everyone about the mediation.
Not a worry. As for myself, prior to doing these webinars, I had never done one before, and I used to hate public speaking, but this is my third one. I'm completely comfortable, I think, at this point. something will happen. It'll change everything, but we'll see. But I did want to talk about, our application process, our portal, and stuff like that. Any tips, I guess, for candidates out there in regards to the application and interview process?
Spell check. I went through the portal and spell check and reread, because certain words, will come up and they won't be wrong under spell check, but they're grammatically super duper incorrect. And if you're going to be writing something for me that I will be saying from the bench, I want to spend my time analyzing your law. I don't want to be your high school English teacher making sure that your grammar is correct or your spelling is correct. Spell checking is just, it sounds something simple. When you write that letter to the judge, don't put "Dear Judge." Dear Judge Healy, dear Judge Sundar. It's not an ego thing, but I want to know that you sent this application to me. The generic "Dear Judge" thing, what effort did you put into it? And unfortunately, we're going to look at that and I will extrapolate. Well, if this person in trying to get a job as a law student put forth this subpar effort, what are they going to do with me once they've already gotten a job? And so, spell check. I don't want to look at a resume and the alignment is off, the fonts are off. It seems like a very superficial thing, but there are people who may have been excellent students and people who will literally, I will not read their resume because that first glance is just bad. Right. So that's just a very, very simple. There was a resume I looked at, it's like, this is great, this is great, this is great. And the last line, the person misspelled the governor of New Jersey's name. And I was like, no, Christie's not spelled with a T-Y, it's an I-E. You should, sorry, never gonna happen. That's something that, is something well within your control. That's very small, but very important to me at least.
Judge Sundar, Judge Healy?
And for me, it's just picking up on what Judge Fulilov said. Address the letter to the particular judge that you're writing to. It's very important. Don't have a typo on that judge's name. It really destroys your chances of getting in. It just destroys. The other thing I don't like, and it's because I'm partial to the tax court, because I'm in tax court, is when they address me as judge of the Superior Court. We're not judges of the Superior Court. JSC is Judge Fulilov, Judge Healy. They are judges of the Superior Court. I am JTC, judge of the tax court. And when there's a presiding judge, make sure you say presiding judge. For Judge Healy, assignment judge. And if Judge Fulilov is in the Supreme Court, justice of the Supreme Court, dear Justice Fulilov, those are important things just to show that A, respect for the office, and that B, it's respect for the person that you're applying to. And 3, if you don't do that, to me, at least, it shows inattention to detail. And that will reflect eventually on the draft opinions you're writing. You could miss, and there's sometimes attention to detail is very important. There are things that the attorneys miss that we don't miss. So to me, that reflects this inattention to detail would reflect badly. So just make sure whenever you're addressing your letter, you want to clerk for Judge Healy, have his last name spelled right, make sure his title is correct. And then I think that's a definite, you're in already, according to me. So those are the things that I look for. Yeah.
Judge Sundar, thank you for the promotion to the state Supreme Court. I will make sure I
if you can't get it here, where else, right?
Much appreciated.
Nahima, and you just, I guess you went through the process. Any tips you have for the future applicants out there?
Apply as early as possible. I think the portal opens up the summer before your 3rd year.
June 23rd.
I know everyone is busy, everyone is overwhelmed. Try to get that out of the way if you can. That doesn't mean you're going to be going for interviews and hired that summer. You can receive phone calls well into the fall semester, but try to organize your applications. And every judge asks for different requirements. I know we're going to get into that. Be sure that you have a notepad or something to record what each judge wants and how to apply. when I applied, I think it was 2019, the portal wasn't used by every judge. I don't know if that has changed. Don't be afraid to call into chambers and find out if your judge prefers a paper copy, a drop off. Well, I don't know if you can drop off now, but every judge doesn't use the portal. So if you're really interested in clerking for a judge, reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out and find out what their preferred application process is. And of course, Judge Sundar, that's very important to have the spelling and the correct title. The New Jersey court system has a directory with all the judges. So please go on and check and make sure, because you may not know, and that's okay, but it doesn't hurt it should double check and make sure everything is spelled correctly. You have the address and important information like that.
All right.
With Google, there's no excuse.
Yeah, that's true.
So as the coordinator of the law clerkship program portal, please use the portal. We're trying to get all of our judges to utilize the portal, but you can check in with chambers to ask questions as well, but please use the portal. All right. Let me see here. Judge Sundar, I guess, I don't know if we touched on this earlier, but how important is GPA when selecting candidates?
Relatively important. Again, I look at the resume on a balanced basis. I've had law clerks whose GPA is about 3.1, but everything else in the resume was phenomenal. I mean, very distinct, very different. I interviewed her and, loved her. And it was just fabulous. So I look at it as a whole, but GPAs do matter. I mean, and then I look if there's a 2.8, and sometimes there have been candidates that I've interviewed, and they explained to me that, I mean, I don't go into details, but Judge, I had a really difficult first year. Something happened to me, and I'm not going to go into details. I will trust them that something happened. I don't think anybody goes into law school and says, whatever. Everybody's really, really struggling to get a good GPA. So I know, when I get them and they tell me that they had issues, they probably did have issues. So I'm not going to hold it as the be all and the end all. Kevin, to answer your question, I do have a threshold at least 2.8, 3.8. The higher, the better. It's great. But it's not necessarily that you get somebody with a 3.8 or 4.0 will make the best candidate for a clerkship with you. Personalities may not match, like Judge Healy said. There might be difference of opinion, and there are other issues. So it's not the be all and the end all, according to me.
All right. And Judge Healy, you touched on this a little bit prior, but I guess tell us a little bit about your mentoring relationships with your former law clerks.
Oh, well, it's really rewarding for the judge. Judge Fullavoff says this, to see the success that these young people had because you, the judge, opened the door for them to get into the legal profession. And so I have had, I think, 12 law clerks, and with one exception, I try to keep track of all of them. I usually have Columbus Day, which is a holiday in the judicial range. We have I invite several law clerks to join me at the Rutgers Club in Piscataway, and we just have a dinner together. And all the law clerks that I've had really treasure this kind of connection. They didn't work together because they only come in 1 year, but they've gotten to know each other through these informal and so much of your legal career involves networking with as many people as possible in a sincere way, not a phony way. And so for me, if I can get a good relationship with the clerk, that makes my job fun, and I can live with knowing that they're going to be the next round of judges, because I think that's going to happen. As I said, I hired a lot of minority law clerks, and we're always looking for good minority judges, and we have some, Judge Fullavoff, Judge Sundar, and I look forward to the day when I can go to the swearing in ceremony for some of my law clerks I had 10, 15 years ago.
Right. And you guys as law clerks, you have a common experience of working for your judge. I do a Christmas brunch every year. And I pay for my current law clerk, and 1 year out, if you're older than that, I figure you have a job, you can pay for yourself. But they all have the shared experience of working for this judge. And to my chagrin, occasionally the jokes happen about, remember, how judge always does this? So judge always does that. But there is absolutely that shared experience that they have, although they may have never interacted or met besides that one moment.
Right. We're coming up to the end. So if anybody has any more questions, feel free to throw them in the Q&A session. But I guess panelists, any final thoughts in regards to why it's important to be a law clerk in the New Jersey court system?
I could say so. I think it's a great opportunity. I think Judge Fully-Love and Judge Healy might have touched upon it. This is the 1 year that the law clerk can be an attorney but not be under pressure. We don't have timesheets. You're not billing by, in 5 minutes or 7 minutes. You have the luxury of taking your time to do the research and getting the right result. You know what the judges are looking for. You're involved in the process of making of the law, because every decision that we're doing out there is precedent. It might not be binding on other judges, but it's precedent. So you're involved in all of that. So I think and when I started, at least in the Attorney General's office, if you came out of a clerkship, you actually got paid more. I don't know if they're doing it now or not, but I don't know, Judge Fully-Love, if they're doing it now or not, but no, maybe not. But when
I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, when I did it back in 96, I think, if I had a clerkship, I would have gotten paid more. But you're also invaluable to the private law firms. They know that you have an in of the workings. What does this judge look for when we're arguing a motion? You become more desirable. I mean, during a clerkship, they're going to, obviously keep an eye on all the clerks and see who they want to hire, but then they like what you're learning. And the more you're able to discuss it, and you will, because you're talking to us, it makes it more invaluable for future. So I think it's an experience that everybody should just go for. Judge Healy?
I just remembered a new benefit for being a law clerk. Some of you who may have lots of loans out, if you do 10 years of public service and you keep your loans paid on time, those loans are forgiven. And here's what I've had: numerous law clerks come in with ungodly amounts of loans. That's the reality. Okay, I accept that. But so far, what happens is, they do 5 years, they go to work for the public defender, they go to work for the attorney general. Your law clerkship counts as your first year of that 10-year payout. What happens? They all go out and get jobs where they say, to hell with that. I'm going to get paid more because they're so successful. I'm going to get paid more, and that'll easily take care of my loans. So I just don't be aware of that 10-year program. It's really a great program. But as my experience is, these guys go out and they're such go-getters. They get better jobs. They don't need it.
And I would say to you guys, in looking at it, and I want to make sure I've said this very clearly. Once you have finished law school, plagiarism is okay. If during your clerkship, you see an amazing brief come across your judge's desk and you think you're going to practice in that area of law, if it's a PDF, save a copy of it, because you may have to make that argument one day. If you see a great argument in court from an attorney, a great line of questioning or cross-examination, write that down. Listen to the recording, jot it down, because you're going to learn from that. You can take those arguments you hear, because even if it's in front of a jury, that jury will never be together again to hear that line of questioning or that argument or that narrative in a closing statement or an opening statement. So you can hear that great closing and say, if I ever have a case on that issue, I'm using that line of questioning. That was awesome. If I ever have to make an argument on this issue, this brief really impressed the judge, I'm going to use this language. Again, not when you're in law school, when you're out practicing. You are going to learn. And then the inverse is true. You are going to see horrific attorneys. Now, our judges are really concerned about demeanor, and so we try our best not to show it on our face when we're seeing really bad attorneys. but you're going to get that inside baseball from the judge, where the judge will say, never ever do what you just saw. Write down what you just heard. Never do that again. And you'll know your judge well enough to know, man, I've learned. You don't ever make that argument. Don't ever write a brief that way. You don't ever, those things that you're going to learn that are outside of the strict work of the clerkship, you can't get anywhere else. You really, really can't. And my law clerks, I'm sure the other judges can say that too, I will tell them, you're going to see a great lawyer come in. I need you to stop what you're doing. I need you to watch the argument you're going to hear. You're going to learn so much just from watching how this person does this thing. And they come back and you're like, Judge, I would have never seen that person before. But, thank you so much. And that's something as a law clerk, you're going to get, hands-on.
And if I can quickly emphasize the mentorship component of a clerkship, I think that it should be highlighted. At the end of the day, it's work. We all agree that it's work, but from day one, you have a lifelong mentor. From my personal experience, Judge Healy has been super active in life decisions, career decisions, and I'm not being biased because, like I said earlier, I'm close with the other family law clerks and they share the same experiences. For this term, we took our bar exam in October for the first time online. And from day one, Judge Healy has been super motivating. He's been very helpful, study tips, relax. Even the day after the bar exam, he said, relax now. And I think that for me was the most important and fantastic thing about my clerkship, just knowing that I have a supporter that's also someone that I work for, but who also wants to see me do well. And I think you can't put a dollar amount to that. That's all.
All right. Well, good. So let me share my screen one more time here. All right. I would like to thank our panel and everyone in the audience for participating today. We will be sending out a follow-up email to today's participants or your law school for distribution with additional information in response to any remaining questions. So we do have some next steps. I do want to talk about the portal a little bit. For any 3L students out there still looking for judicial clerkship, there are a limited number of vacancies available for the upcoming 2021-22 court term that starts in August 2021. So please utilize the portal when you are applying to those. And some other key dates that you should be made aware of: the recruitment cycle for the August 2022-23 clerkship term officially starts June 1st of this year when the notice of vacancy is posted, which is more than a year in advance. Applicants will be able to start applying to these positions on June 21st. And then the justices and judges, they can begin scheduling interviews and making offers of employment on June 28th. So to apply to any judicial clerkship position, please go to our website, www.njcourts.gov, and go to the law clerk recruitment page. And just so you know, anyone can go in and start a profile right now and start building your document library. I know the judges discussed earlier about specifying the judge, instead of just putting dear judge, put dear Judge Healy, dear Judge Fully-Love, etc. You can customize your cover letters in the system and save those. And there is no limit when you're building your document library. So you have up until June 21st. That's when, again, when applications open. All right. If there are any other questions, please send them to lawclerkfaq@njcourts.gov. That's something me and my team cover. So you maybe get me when you do have questions. And if you do, I will make sure I send you the YouTube link to my game show that I was in, Think Fast, back in the day. So again, thank you to our panel, Judge Fully-Love, Judge Sandar, Judge Healy, and Nahima, and the audience for participating in today's webinar. Did I do something? Oh, we hope you consider judicial clerkship with New Jersey courts. This is our last webinar of this series, so be on the lookout for additional content coming soon. Be safe and have a great day. The work of the courts continues. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for participating, and good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you. All right, guys, have a good one. Thank you very
Take
much.
care.